Hey, it's JK. So, a few months back I tested out how hard it would be beating Dark Souls 1 without dodging, blocking or armor. Turns out, it was mostly not that bad apart from the DLC, which did get quite difficult. Inevitably, I'd need to ask the same question of the other games in the series, and today we're going to try it out in Dark Souls 2. The rules are simple. I'm not allowed to do any dodging motion, such as rolling or backstepping. I'm not allowed to block attacks with shields of any kind, and I must not wear any armor so that tanking attacks becomes tricky with increased damage and no poise. I must use melee only, of course, no range stuff like archery or magic, as that would kinda defeat the purpose of the run. I've often heard people say that many bosses in Dark Souls 2 can be beaten by just walking around them in a circle, so I guess we'll find out if that's true today. The results of this run led to a pretty surprising revelation, so stick around for that at the end. Will we be on a roll throughout this run, or will we end up taking a step back? Much like the night after my stag party, I wake up dressed in rags in the centre of a stone gazebo in the middle of Birmingham. We name our character No Roll Derp and make him into a stunning character of immense beauty. Let me know in the comments below why this guy reminds you of yourself. We choose the warrior class and the petrified something as gift. I was going to listen to these women telling me I'm going to die lots again, but I'm kind of sick of them at this point. I now take off all our armor and weapons and then make our way up to the crow's nest here. I trade the petrified something with the crows for the demon's great hammer. We used it for the Dark Souls 1 variant, so let's keep consistency. Anyway, onwards to Majula. Now, we can't actually wield our hammer yet, but we only need 25 strength to be able to two-hand it. We make our way into Flade's Tower of Haim and run on through to Dragon Rider. I was a little worried I might not be able to get him to fall off without rolling, but luckily, he's still not very smart. Thanks to the power of gravity, he's a Dragoner. With the souls from him as well as those gained from popping his soul, I now level up strength to 25 and put some points into vigor, endurance and vitality. I decided to not level strength any higher than this to keep things fair. I head into Forest of Fallen Giants and encounter the first bit of pain. Not being able to roll away here is not great. You know, we might just have to kill everything this time. Wow, even the turtle guy gets smashed down. I can already tell though, the biggest issue in this run is going to be getting away from gangs of enemies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's do the last giant. How much we doing? Okay, well that's nearly half his health. Despite this one stomp here, he didn't get me with another hit. I swung a few more times as he pulled his arm off, and needless to say, this fight didn't last long. I then buy the Fragrant Branch and the key from Melentia, which gets us the Silver Serpent Ring +1. Okay, well let's give the Pursuer a go. You know, this might be the first time I've done more damage to the Pursuer than the last giant. The heavy attack of the Demon's Hammer did monster numbers. I was able to just walk to the right as the Pursuer charged in, landing an attack afterwards. I did get a little lucky as he didn't do many of his slash attacks, which would have been less easy to walk around. After a few more smashes, I think we can definitely say this weapon is pursuitable for this fight. We head onwards now to the Lost Bastille and grab the Duller McDuff from this chest. I head back to Majula and upgrade Vigor, Vitality and Endurance some more, and then easily crush another Pursuer for our first Twinkling Titanite. I then get the antiquated key and blow open the way to Steady Hand Ember. Lighting the torch here gets him to move, so we can get another Twinkling Titanite. The Demon's Great Hammer is now +1. Next on the chopping block are the Rune Sentinels. Immediately upon entering the boss fight, this one always seems to start with an overhead swing, which is easy to walk around and punish. Just 4 hits is enough to bring her down. I thought I was going to first try it, but I got a little too overzealous, took some hits, and then died from the full damage dropping off the platform. Next try, I took out the first one quickly, and this time successfully wiped out the second before the third could get involved. The third did hit me with the spin to win, but luckily I was able to escape and heal. Despite her fighting back at the end, I'd ruined her comeback with one final swing. I then smashed in a few more levels to my survival stats and brought down another Pursuer for one more Twinkling Titanite. As we're here, we might as well do the Belfry Gargoyles. I actually got invaded here, and this little red guy got pounded into a tomato paste. The Gargoyles themselves were not too pleased with my presence, and unfortunately trying to get away was my undoing here. Probably would have been smart to get the hammer up to +2 first. This still proved to be a bit of an issue though. Taking just one hit left me so vulnerable, and getting away was near impossible. Well, third time is hopefully the charm. The most important thing here was spacing. I needed to make sure I created enough distance between them and me so that when they ran at me with an attack, I was far enough away to avoid it and then run back in with a counter-attack. Luckily, it only took 2 R2s to take out each gargoyle, so keeping the numbers down wasn't too much of a problem. I did nearly get caught at the end, but one final swing takes out the last Garg. Belfry Souls, this certainly was not. Up ahead, I quickly smash up Vorgel and get the Bright Bug. I do a bit more leveling now, those stats are looking quite good actually. Before we proceed further into the Bastille, let's sort out some optional bosses. First up, I returned to Hades where I decimated these knights and took out Ian in just 4 R2s. Old Dragon Slayer was similarly not too much issue. I did get caught by some of his attacks as I literally couldn't get away, but running around him was quite effective to get behind for a nice opening. It didn't take too many R2 swings to give him the old 1-2 and secure victory. I used his souls to buy life gems and some bright bugs in case I needed them later. Onwards to No-Wharf's Man, where I pummel these pirates, ring the Bell of Awakening, and then take on the Flexile Sentry. One thing I'm realizing is that despite the good damage numbers, I cannot get greedy here. Even doing 2 attacks in a row with the hammer means I cannot get away from this boss's combo. Good thing that I leveled up health. I ran away, healed up, and then hit his spine so hard that now he's even more flexile. This means that we can now take the other route into the Lost Bastille, where there's another pursuer to kill. Shame that this little area killed me more than any boss so far. The combination of the archers, the dogs, and just not being able to get away if you get hit by the first attack of his combo made this quite a sucky experience. Finally, I got the right combination of taking out the enemies and getting the jump on the pursuer to secure us another Twinkling Titanite. With that, we now make our way to Sinner's Rise and enter the Lost Sinner boss fight. Shame that I forgot to get flame butterflies to light the room up here. I actually thought this was going to be a lot harder than it was, given the Sinner's speed and range, but surprisingly, running around her attacks was pretty effective. I actually only got hit 1 time during the fight. With one final swing of our giant hammer, we leave her with Sinerve damage. With that, our first primal bonfire is lit. I use the souls to buy more life gems, bright bugs, and level up some more. I then return to the Bastille to take out one last pursuer I forgot about, and then head into Copsman's Hunt. So, question, how the hell did this enemy here not hit me? I quickly pounded these idiots, and then even crushed the heavily armoured Red Phantom by the Fog Gate. The Executioner's Chariot boss is up next. Getting past the skeletons and smashing the necromancers went quite smooth here. I luckily never ended up in a position where I wasn't able to get in an alcove to avoid the chariot. Once the horse crashes through the gate, I began my assault. Thankfully, a lot of its attacks are quite slow, so apart from the 1 charge attack, I didn't take too much damage here. One last swing, and we, for horse, our way through this boss fight. I now stick more points in Vigor, Endurance, and Vitality. Just down the road, we turn Rowena into a huntsman's corpse, and then take on the Skeleton Lords. Despite saying I wasn't planning to use a one-shot setup, this did end up being a legit one-shot. Every one of the lords got taken out before they could do anything. Then the bone wheels got wheeled off, and all the grunts got absolutely floored by my mighty hammer. I met Cloanne up ahead and spent enough with her to get another Twinkling Titanite. This lets us bring the hammer up to +3. Well, next up it's this cuddly guy who... I mean, this was about what you'd expect. Luckily, Babs wasn't around to co-veto my decision to kill him. I then lit the windmill, paid Bo Raicho for his ladder, and grabbed another Twinkling Titanite. Now, onto Mitha. Surprisingly, running away from her projectiles was pretty effective. I did get caught by the grab, again, good thing I leveled up health here. I kept running around her in circles which seemed to really confuse her. This boss should be harder really, a bit more health wouldn't go amiss. I then went into Iron Keep, where I shattered Sharon, demolished Dennis, and annihilated the Alonne Knights. Even the captains get pancaked. Luckily, I brought some repair powder for Smelter Demon. After breezing through a lot of the bosses so far, Smelter Demon was the first one that was a bit of an issue. Getting hit by one attack from him made it very hard to get away and recover, leading to a fair few deaths. The running around behind them strat that worked with the other bosses did work here as well, but you have to be a lot quicker about it and also make sure you never run out of stamina. When he jumps away and I miss an attack, there's almost nothing I can do to prevent getting hit. I did get cornered at one point, and I've got no idea how I managed to escape. but I kept on running, landing the occasional hit until we let the sun go down on Smelton John. I leveled up my stats more and then went to kill the pursuer that spawns in Smelter's boss room. This is a good time to discuss one mechanic exclusive to Dark Souls 2 that makes this run more difficult. The turning animation that occurs when you try to run while locked on. It only occurs when you're trying to run away from the opponent. This turning animation delays you for that split second, meaning often you'll get caught and annihilated. The best solution to this? Don't lock on. Yeah, it does make things more awkward from a camera perspective, but if it means I don't die and I can actually kill this dude, I'm all for it. For our troubles, we get the Ring of Blades +1. There's also another Twinkling Titanite and the Life Ring +1 a little further on. With that, I push on forward past these low IQ Turtle Knights and make it to the next bonfire where we turn off the flames. Old Iron King now enters the fray, and honestly this was the one boss where I did get greedy. But it was okay. His windows are long enough to actually get 2 whole attacks in, taking off vast chunks of his health. After a few more smashes, we bring him down in 60 seconds, giving this king a royal flush down the toilet. Primal Bonfire number 2 is lit. We're making good progress. Seems a good time to crank up a few more levels here. So now, onto Shaded Woods, where I circumvented this gank by blowing up these barrels and pounding these swollen boys to a pulp. In Shaded Woods, I grabbed the Chloranthy Ring +1 before barely managing to fend off Forlorn and one of these invisible guys. I'm genuinely not sure how I got out of this alive, which seems to be a running theme at this point. There's also another Twinkling Titanite down below here, which is handy. Scorpioness Nashka is up ahead, and this might be one of the easier bosses to do without dodging. There's a nifty little speedrun trick where you can nestle yourself in her side, and she'll keep doing the tail swing attack. Because the hitbox is only on the end part of her tail, you actually won't get hit here, and you can pummel her to your heart's content. It might seem cheap, but it's a Scorpion necessary evil. I enter Doors of Pharos now, and... really? He drops the halberd first try? Are you serious? Why can't you do this when I actually need it? Anyway, we get another Twinkling Titanite through this door ahead, upgrade the hammer, and get a couple more levels in health. I suppose we gotta do this awful fight now. Okay, only 1 rat left. I hate it here. On the next try, I was able to take out the smaller rats all except one. I somehow got away and healed up until the toxic wore off, and thanks to an assist from the big guy, smashed up the final rat. After that, taking out the big guy was easy enough. He didn't require much strategy. With that awfulness out of the way, it was onto the awfulness of Brightstone Cove. I ran into this room and spammed the heavy attack button against the congregation. I was really surprised the healers didn't go down in one hit, but other than that, we pound this crew down with our Great Hammer. Speaking of congregation, why not consider joining the Naifu Nation and subscribing to the channel? We're aiming for 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if we reach it, I'm going to do a challenge run with restrictions created by you, the viewers. Look forward to having you help with my own self-imposed pain. Thank you all. Brightstone Cove handily has a couple of Twinkling Titanites, which we can easily grab for later. With these in hand, I body the bowman, splat the spiders, and enter a fray with Freya. To make this a little tougher, I decided to not use the torch to scare the spiders away. It didn't really make too much difference though. True, there was some thrust attacks which I ended up tanking instead of getting away from, but Freya is pretty weak to strike, and the damage from this hammer was pretty alarming here. Kinda wild this is a weapon you can get right from the start of the game. With a few more swings, this spider looks like she's been hit by a Freyet train. Another primal bonfire lit. With that sorted, I level up our stats some more, and now there's nothing left but to drop down the Medulla pit. I then went and easily crushed this group of rats guarding a van, including killing the main one in just 2 hits. We then make our way down into the gutter. I ran through and got the second bonfire, crushing some little mobs on the way. We make it into the Black Gulch where I take out these giants below with surprising ease, and I smash Victor into the land with my wood. Now, it's time for the final Great Souls boss, the Rotten. So there was one thing I was really curious about. Can his arms be cut off with a strike weapon? Well, yes actually, they definitely can. It took just 3 R2s from our weapon to take off each one. I did take some hits from his horizontal swings because I couldn't run away, but shortly after, I disarmed him and he dies seconds later while flailing his little stubby limbs. I'm feeling good about this, even Audia can't ruin my day. With Vigor now brought to 40, I run and grab the Dragon Talon and also the Heavy Iron Key. I don't plan to use these yet, but good to get them for later. I now open up the Shrine of Winter and press on to Drangleic Castle. We smash up the Royal Knights outside and get the main door open. I then open up some doors, killing a rune sentinel on the way, and get the route for Darklurker unlocked for later. I then grab the Frozen Flower and another Twinkling Titanite. We make our way upwards for the Twin Dragon Rider fight. These guys are the peak of, I can just run around them and avoid their attacks. That, combined with their weakness to strike damage, was easily enough to bring the first one down with just a few smashes. The second one drops down, but he has way less health, so 2 R2s is enough to absolutely destroy both his body and his parade. I now quickly open up the way forward by bonking these mannequins and grab the key to the King's Passage. There's a Twinkling Titanite in the King's Passage, leaving us just one short to upgrade our weapon to max. Luckily, there is one more we can grab. First, I head to Things Betwixt and unfreeze this guy to open this path. I then take out the hippos by cheesing them with this door, and then easily take out the pursuer on the beach for the last Twinkling Titanite we need. As we're here, I know what you're all dying to see, so here you go. But remember, you asked for this. Anyway, with this important change made, I now max upgrade our Demon Greathammer. The next roadblock was Looking Glass Knight, who does have some multi-hit combos which really hurt quite a bit. The shield also meant some of our hits just whiffed completely. There were a couple of occasions where I just had to run away and heal up, praying he didn't catch up to me. I didn't manage to take him out before he summoned a friend, but even the reduced damage I did to him while he summoned was quite good. After one more swing, we defeat him. Things are looking good for us. I now put some points into endurance and prepare for this hellish area. Given the lack of dodging, it seemed prudent just to try and kill everything one by one. Somehow, I managed to run around the mages and take them out, even though I took many hits in the process. Slow and steady 100% wins the race here as I arch the backs of these archdrakes. Peculiar Kindler was very unkind to me though, but shortly after, I returned their disrespect in kind. Demon of Song is up next, and honestly, I probably wouldn't really dodge this boss if I was fighting them normally anyway. It's easy enough to run away from their attacks and then run back in to hit them. Quite a forgettable boss, honestly. I then went to Undead Crypt where Nameless Usurper gets surprised by her brains being smashed in, and I run past the shield guys to get the shortcut unlocked. I killed all the annoying little guys trying to ring this bell, and then even killed the Dragon Rider here at the end just to assert dominance. Well, time to take on the only guy with a bigger smashy club than me, Velstad. The good news is that several of his attacks can be maneuvered out of the way of for an easy punish. The bad news is once those horizontal swings start going, they really hurt. If he decides to do multiple swings, you know you're in for a bad time. After barely surviving one, he started his phase 2 buff, and I actually got a lot of damage on him during this. He then very quickly went for the projectile attack, which I was able to get behind and finish him off for the win. There was a little more to it, but you get the gist of it. I now get the Rings King, and just to spice things up, I'm going to take a different route than normal. That's right, we're going to take on Throne Watcher and Defender right now. Yep, this is kind of what I thought would happen here. That was a good run as well. I hate this fight. There's a reason throne can sometimes mean toilet. This was hands down the hardest fight of the run so far. To start off, my goal was to weaken the Defender a little bit. I really wanted to take out the Watcher first though, because her multi-hit combos with their long reach were the thing that kept ruining me. I landed a 2 hits back to back which got them both, which was very useful. The Watcher has a lot less health, so I knew it would take perhaps 3 more hits to kill her. After a couple of narrow escapes from their combos, I was able to land another hit that got both of them. I then baited the Watcher's jump, punished, and then ran in to finish her off as she went to buff. With her dead, it took only a couple more hits to bring down Defender and end this. It was a lot of pressure here because the throness was all on me to get it done. This fight did make me realise a grave error I had made though. I hadn't leveled up ADP. Yeah, it's not that crucial here because we're not dodging, but it does slightly speed up the rate you use items such as life gems, so kinda worthwhile. Time to start rectifying that. I did fancy taking out another optional boss that may be challenging, so let's do Darklurker now as well. I really wasn't expecting to be able to pancake the Havel guy, but here we are. Same goes to the Turtle Knight armor guy in the second chasm, even though he can give you a good pummeling if you're not careful. Anyway, after lighting up all the pyres in the chasms, we can drop in to say hi to Darklurker. I was really expecting this to be a very difficult fight, but surprisingly it was kinda okay. The first phase he kept doing the laser sword, which I was easily able to run around and punish. Given his crazy physical resistances, damage is the lowest we've seen so far easily. He also didn't split until pretty late in the fight, leaving him with about 25% health. I did get popped by a double laser sword as I got too greedy, only barely managing to get away. After a bunch of running and life gem popping, I was back up to good health and ready to attack again. After waiting for the right moment, one of them disappeared, leaving the other vulnerable as he tried to laser sword me. I ran around him again and laid in a couple more heavy attacks to end him. Can't wait to get out of this dismal location. Right, back to the main quest and into Aldia's Keep. This of course means it's Ian time. Normally, Ian is a pretty annoying fight as he flies away a lot, but I had the best RNG I think I've ever had for him here. He didn't fly up to shoot fire even once throughout the whole fight. I even got to actually smash his tail off, which I don't know if I've ever done. I thought he was flying near the end, but he just jumped back to breathe fire, which I ran around and then cracked him in his unguarded skull to take him out. Onto Dragon Shrine, where the Drake Keepers actually go down with surprising ease, which is nice to see. Even Gaia the Dragon Champion was no match for the power of Bonk. So of course we got to do Ancient Dragon. This was going to be an easy peasy toe squeezy time, but unfortunately my weapon broke and I didn't have any repair powder. Thankfully, I had the Dragon Tooth to switch to finish the job. Way less damage, but nothing too terrible. Hey, 23 ADP now. We can now head into the Giant's Memories, get in the Giant Souls, and take on the Giant Lord. Here, we can just go for a nice walk in between his legs and smash his knees repeatedly with our Great Hammer. I did get caught by a stomp, but he died after I unleashed the repercussions of that stomp back onto his foot. Vendrick was a very similar fight of just running around by his ankles. The only notable thing was that he did the very rarely seen jump attack at one point, so that's kinda cool. He did catch me with a couple hits, and I actually thought I might die, but thankfully I recovered and killed him. My final hits shook the ground. I'd say it was an 8 on the Vendrick scale. With ADP now at 33, let's finish off the base game. So we've got Nashandra and Aldia and... Look, let's be real. Both these bosses have very slow attacks, and you can avoid most of them without even dodging whatsoever. The only exception being the Curse Orbs of Nashandra and the Fire Shield of Aldia. Both of these guys went down without much issue, even if the Scholar of the First Sin continues to talk our Aldia off after he dies. The base game is complete. Honestly, a lot of these bosses, with the major exception of Throne Watcher and Defender, weren't made too much more difficult by our restrictions. But of course, the DLC is where the true difficulty of this game lies, so let's see how we get on there. After 8 damn hours of credits, of course. Alright, I pump up our ADP and prepare for the first DLC, the Sunken Crown. Hi, Sin. Okay, well, I can already tell this is going to be a barrel of laughs. I decided to get the Sanctum Key and get the worst one out of the way first. Rockshield Boulder's Gate blocks our path though. He was actually the first NPC invader who didn't get immediately pancaked by my hammer. Oh wait, there we go. Why did it work that time? Who knows. Anyway, he dead. So the gank squad is up now, and you know what? This fight actually went better than usual. Being able to pancake them was a massive help. I couldn't pancake the Havel cosplayer consistently, but when I was able to, it was pretty satisfying. He did pancake me in return, and of course I can't tap circle to get up quickly. They did catch me with some hard hits at points, but I just kept running and stopping to hit them occasionally. As long as I was still able to run, avoiding their attacks was not too much of a problem. This time, I left the archer alive last just so he would feel the fear as I crushed him with my hammer. Sarah better feeling than being done with this boss? I then ran ahead and grabbed the Dragonstone and then sorted out Thomas. Jester, I hardly even know her. One her that I do know, unfortunately, is Alana Squalid Queen. This is usually an awful fight on most challenge runs. Not for the first part, of course, her attacks are mostly easily dodged, but it's when she starts summoning the problems arise. And wouldn't you know it, she summons Velstad right away. Great. This fight saw me take an enormous amount of hits, being flattened by Velstad only to get back up and be immediately blown up by Alana's fireball. I had to just keep running to lure Velstad away, and then run back in to land one hit and then keep running. Thank God I leveled up endurance. Despite some very hard hits and a few close calls, I actually managed to somehow pull this off on my first try. At least this low squality boss didn't take up too much of my time. That just leaves Sin as the final boss of this DLC. For a number of reasons I've discussed in previous videos, I don't like this fight very much. The main one being when you get bad RNG and he just constantly flies away. The good news is when he finally does decide to come down, we can do a pretty good amount of damage. I did get caught by his head swipe on occasion due to not running away fast enough, but other than that, the majority of the attacks can just be run away from. He did stomp me at the end when I went to deliver the final blow, but it wasn't enough to stop me pressing the advantage and winning. With that, we get the crown of the Sunken King and our first DLC is complete. I now entered the second DLC, time for Broom Tower. The classic plunge attack to this guy and then sneak through the room strat worked great for this initial section. For this awful room, I killed a couple of the guys and then somehow managed to open the door before the others caught up with me. I did still die, but worth it. As I pressed on through, I hit this fume sorcerer so hard it warped his body in midair. That looked pretty painful. I lured the big guy to get blown up and opened the way forward. I then quickly quelled Quicksword Rachel and robbed the Raging Rod. Now it's time to start taking on the bosses. I grabbed the tower key because I just want to get the worst one over with. Surprisingly, I did manage to run through this tunnel and get through before the gate closed. Wait, I managed to do the second one as well? I can't do this normally when I can roll. What is going on? It's blue smelter time now. You know, I expected this to be pretty bad, and unsurprisingly it was pretty bad. Given his high damage and the fact each hit stuns me for quite a while, taking one hit is pretty much game over here. After an hour or so of dying from hits like that, I decided this would be my first boss where I'd use a bright bug. The damage increase was helpful to bring him down quicker, and maybe, just maybe, I could survive an extra hit. My main strategy was just to stay as close to him as possible and run around him in an anti-clockwise circle. Once he attacked, I'd land a single R2. When he did his second buff, I munched an Elizabeth mushroom to keep my health regenerating. Finally, after a lot of circling and a few near-death experiences, we leave this smelter demon feeling blue as he dies. Okay, onwards and downwards. For Fume Knight, I used a bright bug right away given the difficulty I had with Smelter Demon. But honestly, this was so much easier it wasn't even funny. Running around his attacks actually felt almost easier than trying to dodge them. I nearly did this first try, but got caught right at the end. The next attempt wasn't quite as smooth, but it's still kinda wild how many of his moves you can just walk around. I did take a bit of punishment in phase 2, but even so, this was not too bad. I ended it when I walked around his sword laser attack and landed one last heavy to fumigate this tower of our rain problem. We get the crown, but we still have one more boss to go. Because I normally never do it, I decided to take out these Predator cosplayers on the way. Yep, I actually took out every single one of them. Are you proud of me? I then smashed up these Alonne Knights and then hit this salamander so hard he did a triple somersault. This is Peak Souls 2. Sir Alonne, I had honestly predicted was going to be one of the most difficult fights of the run. The main reason for this was the attack where he slides across the arena to slash you. I thought this was going to be a nightmare to avoid. But actually, what I thought would be his greatest weapon against me turned out to be his greatest weakness. You can actually run in the opposite direction and outspace this attack. This leaves him open for me to run back in and land a hit. I actually started trying to bait him into doing that attack, and it proved to be extremely effective. Doing this fight actually showed me a completely new way to handle him. This strategy alone was enough to secure us the victory after just a couple minutes. This was unexpected. I really thought the DLC was going to wall this run, but so far 5 out of the 6 DLC bosses went down without much issue. Well, one last DLC to go. Can we find the challenge we seek here? I make my way through, crushing these crystal cretins. Even the rampart golems didn't stand a chance. I got the Eye of the Priestess, smashed Orham with my Heimer, and now it was time for Ava. This was another fight I predicted would be tough, but this time I was actually right. Trying to run away from Ava's gap closes definitely doesn't work as well as it did with Sir Alonne. Definitely tougher than the last 2 boss fights, but I did find a couple tricks that helped. Firstly, a big window normally is when you roll under Ava's close-up claw swipes, but you can actually run through them also if you angle yourself correctly. It is also possible to punish some of her lunges, particularly the grab bite as long as you have enough spacing. The AoE attacks she does also have a nice opening. Running behind her when she does the projectiles also works great if you're close enough. I took advantage of every available opportunity, and soon we put this tiger down for a catnap. With the ice all gone now, let's go get the boys. I smash up Hexa Nikolai, scare off Zapasti, and then open the gate. I then ran past Babs' cute friend, and then made my way up to free the first knight. I then did the other exciting Ilium Lois stuff like lighting torches, grabbing garrison ward keys, putting a dent in Donna, and freeing the other 2 knights. With that all sorted, we just had to finish off the last 2 bosses. I decided to clear off what I thought would be the worst of them first, and headed to the frigid outskirts. I decided for once in my miserable life to not use the summons for distraction, so I actually took the time to kill the reindeer on the way. I hate these guys with all of my soul. Okay, taking out 2 of them at once was pretty satisfying though. They're reindeering themselves to me a little bit. So, onto the twin kitties. Now, the biggest issue here is going to be the period where both cats are active. Lud and Zalin are really just like Arva with less health, so avoiding their individual attacks is familiar to me. But both on the field at once? Yeah, not a good time. Next try, I managed to take down Lud, but Zalin wiped me out right away. This actually happened a few times, honestly. This took a fair few tries. I'd probably say it wasn't as bad as Blue Smelter or the Throne Duo, but it was up there. Honestly, part of the success of this was down to RNG. Stuff like one of the projectiles hitting me to knock me out of the way of Zalin's lunge, and then Lud's body blocking me from Zalin's attack as I finished him off. With only Zalin remaining, this went back to the one-on-one cat fight, and although I did nearly choke, I managed to land the last 2 hits while Zalin was buffing to end this particularly annoying fight. The Ivory King is the final boss of the run. One great thing here is we have the ability to pancake the Lois Knights, which is a huge boon for this fight. Being able to nullify them for that precious couple of seconds is the difference between life and death. Keeping on top of them from the start is crucial, although equally make sure you don't kill them too quickly or the king spawns before the final portal closes. I left 2 alive until that happened and cleared up when the last of my friends went to seal the portals. So now, it was just me and my buddy left against the Ivory King. He honestly did great work here, taking the king's aggro so I could bonk him in the back. It didn't take too many hits from this point on, and I delivered the final one as the king tried to buff his sword to end this veritable challenge. With that, the run is concluded. What did we learn here? Well, I think I might have just made the most pro Dark Souls 2 video of my career. For years, people have often cited ADP as one of the biggest negatives of Dark Souls 2 and a reason they believe it to be a bad game. I, however, have just proven that ADP does not matter. Outside of the Throne Duo, Blue Smelter Demon, and the Twin Kitties, most of the bosses were bested without too much issue with no dodging whatsoever. No longer is there need to put points into ADP, and if you, an avid Dark Souls 2 fan, ever have to deal with someone crapping on ADP, then show them this video. No dodging in this game ended up being easier than Dark Souls 1. But there are still more games in the Souls series we're going to have to try this out on, and I suspect that they may not go down so quietly. But until then, I've been JK Leeds. See ya, and have a good one.